Y'all don't get these kind of exclusives. You guys talk about supporting. Y'all not really supporting. Y'all not really putting your money where your mouth is. We serious about a support here. Dig what I'm saying? We serious about a support. Put your money where your mouth is. What is good, HipHoppas? It is Esteban Xound here with another album review. Now, before we get into anything, remember as always to subscribe, comment, like, and share the video if you fuck with the videos. Let us know what you want to see next. And with that being said, this is the 17 Mallie album review. Going into the project, I'm a fan of 17. First off, as a person, 17 is an incredible person, very energetic, uplifting, the kind of person that you want on your team. I remember when I was selling my Sound Movement t-shirts, the first time that I met this guy, it was over at the Lola screening. First time I met him, he knew who I was, he embraced me, and he bought a t-shirt off me. And for that, I'm forever grateful for 17. Just the support was there, and I appreciate that. Personals aside, 17 actually makes some pretty dope music. Starting from his debut album 17, that's when I really became a fan of his music. And just seeing the videos from the singles off that album, it just gave me an insight on somebody who grew up in the Northeast and what it was like to grow up in the Northeast from his perspective. I never heard an artist out of Calgary speak from that kind of perspective until 17. And I thought the man had an incredible ability for storytelling and for executing music videos. Now, I haven't heard ATM up to this point, so I can't speak on that album. And then I heard the singles that dropped off of this project, Godspeed, Criminal, and Snow. And just off the singles, I can tell that this was going to be a change sonically from the last project. Even content wise, the music was still street influenced, but just not in the way of a white Lexus. It was not nearly as gutter, but more of a polished, clean sounding album. So going into the album, I was expecting this project to sound differently than we heard on previous projects. I was still holding out for a couple bangers on the album. First impressions, I was blessed enough to be part of the private listening session at the Beach Studios to hear the album. Me and my bro went out. We heard the album. We met up with a lot of dope artists out of the Northeast. Really dope time. Appreciate you, 17, for inviting us. And honestly, at first, I was lukewarm towards the album. I liked it. It had its moments, but I didn't love it. And honestly, a lot of it was due to the fact of the sonic change on this project. It veers away from the traditional hard street trap sound, and it offers more of an accessible melodic approach to street content, as well as the usual lavish lifestyle that 17 promotes in his music. After a few listens, I really started to appreciate this project for an individual piece that stands on its own. We didn't get the street anthems that I was hoping for, but in exchange we got a cohesive, solid project with a cohesive sound. And you can tell that this was made during a very reflective time for 17 and definitely influenced by a few trips outside of Calgary. I mean, this album was named after his girlfriend, so you can kind of get the feel for what this album is gonna sound like. My favorite tracks, number one, Alaska. Off the bat, you can hear the smooth, melodic tunes that cover this whole album. From the singing hook to the refrain, everything about this track yells melodies. And this song is essentially about going on a vacation or a getaway with a partner and simply enjoying life. Honestly, listening to this track, I was already starting to plan my next vacation to somewhere tropical, and I could see myself playing this in the background on my way to Mexico or some shit. Like, it just has that kind of vibe. Weigh in, respect to 17 and JB, but Noah J killed this track. I thought all three verses offered different perspectives on the track. 17's was more of a business street hustle, and SB was more of a struggle perspective, but Noah J, the way he casually talks about fake people on this track and interactions with fake people, it just goes perfectly over this xylophone driven trap beat. Godspeed, the melodic approach to a harder trap instrumental was different from 17. On previous projects, we would have got something like a White Lexus. 17 took this track to really speak on living a carefree lifestyle and living a life filled with purpose. Criminal. This probably is the densest track on the album. 17 speaks on living a life of crime and using motivation to get himself out of that situation. Sonically, it sounds like it could belong in the radio, which is a good thing and a bad thing. But the message on this track is really what stands it out from the rest of the album. Snow. 17 takes the perspective of a drug dealer and uses the metaphor of snow to allude to selling cocaine. I mean, we can date the origins of this metaphor back to the infamous Snowman with Jeezy. But sonically, the spaced out melodies and the airy instrumental really sets this track apart from its predecessors using this kind of metaphor. The Life. This track is reminiscent of White Lexus. I know I keep going back to this track. It's one of my favorite tracks. It's just a point of reference for a sound. I could say White Lexus, I could say Boys for Life. But yeah, this track was very reminiscent of that kind of sound that 17's made. It's a flat out street anthem. And 17 sounds clear and motivated on this track. And I think Kash Colie really depicts living the street life from a perspective of somebody in Calgary. Sonically, this shit slaps. My one complaint on this track is it offers a bit of a contradiction on the album. 17 claims that he never sold drugs, and even if he did, he wouldn't put his shit on wax. But on the previous track, he alludes to selling cocaine. It was a bit of a contradiction that I was having trouble making sense of. But other than that, I really appreciated this track. My least favorite tracks, Who We Are, another song that sounded like it could land on the radio. This track was the definition of the accessible sound that 17 plays with on this album. I think it just sounded like too much of a reach for radio for me to get behind it. And Mallie, I don't hate this track. It's a nice closer on the album. For an album named Mallie, it's an appropriate closer. I was just hoping for a harder closer on the album. Overall, I think this is a really solid, cohesive album. I definitely wasn't sold on it at first. So when I bought a copy of this, I was going off a previous report. But the more I invested time into this project, the more I got out of this project. Much like the Carter's Everything Is Love, which came out in 2018, I can pretty much play this track in any occasion. And with the accessibility of this album mixed with the street sensibility that 17 is known for, it lends itself for a high replay value. If you're watching, I'd say continue to experiment with different sounds on your albums. I enjoy the fact that you're not getting stagnant on one kind of sound or one type of content. You're pushing yourself to create distinct albums, and I love that out of you. Keep doing that. Keep working with some of the best artists, not just out of the city, not just Northeast wise, but citywide and countrywide and just worldwide. And I think with this album, you've shown that you're able to create solid, cohesive projects. I think the next step for you would be to create a concept album or create something that really pushes the line. Is much like what you're doing with the Lola videos. I would love to see you kind of push in that sort of direction on a whole album. And keep being a dope, genuine human being who supports dope shit. Appreciate that shit out of you. And with that being said, if I was to give this a rating, I would give this a 8 out of 10. Is it hip hop certified? It definitely is certified. It gets the stamp. That's all I got to say in this one. Get you a copy. Get a copy. I got one. Out, y'all. Yes. Treep stands it out, which